This is a man. This is a man. This is a man. This is a man.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Talk Podcast. Now, I'm sure a lot of you, maybe just a few of you, are just as surprised as I am. You're seeing the picture. Most of you know the woman's face on the screen, which is Bonnie Blue. I'm not going to dig in because I don't know what to say. I don't know how to introduce her, and I'm sure she doesn't need no introduction. But wait a minute. Who is that other face on the other side? Now, I am going to say I have no idea who this is. I'm just here sitting, thinking, having questions, just like you guys and girls, right? I saw this picture all over the place on the internet. Saw this picture on YouTube already. I saw this picture on Instagram. I saw this picture everywhere on my typical social media platforms that I scroll around. And the first time I saw it, I was thinking to myself, ugh, shocking. But the same moment, I was thinking to myself, wow, what a close similarity. And then I started scrolling the comments, obviously, right? And people were bringing up questions and assumptions that this man on the picture looks very, 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 very similar to Bonnie Blue. And some were even claiming that this man is Bonnie Blue. So I'm just here a podcaster, asking questions, always curious, always nosy, always finding something to perhaps learn to share to the audience. Yes, sometimes it's entertaining, but really, what is going on? I'm not going to sit here and pretend and say I do not see the similarity. I do see the similarity. Now, hold on, okay? Before anyone is going to come for me, I am very much aware that people can have lookalikes, right? And your lookalike could even be a man. It happens. But with how life has been changing nowadays, with how things have been going nowadays, with all these stories and all these, come on now, what is going on? So, with all of this confusion, I am welcoming you all to another episode of the Talk Podcast. I think I did say hello already, but just a tiny bit more, a little bit more. I wanted to continue this conversation between Bonnie Blue, who we're not sure he, she, it, um, whatever, but we know what she's about, and Andrew Tate. And me personally, I don't, it doesn't affect my personal life. I think there's going to be so much to learn in terms of listening carefully to what people are saying, in terms of understanding that as humans, whatever kind of lifestyle you live, um, or whatever kind of position you're trying to stand and take to the people, it will always happen that contradictions are going to show up. And there are some particular people where, to be honest, there's always contradiction around them. But because they have a great presence, it might not be so obvious for you to catch, right? So I'm not here to judge the people per se, but just the communication, the things that they're saying, the positions that they're taking. Um, Anything else, I will never meet these people. I do not know these people as a close connect. I don't care to do that. But let's see what this clip is going to be about. So,
Or have sex with whoever. But she'd marry a different type of man. To marry someone is different than having sex with someone. You wouldn't just marry anyone, would you? You'd have to kind of like him.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be completely different. Like, I generally have sex with anyone of legal age. But if I'm thinking of marriage, it's completely different.
Okay, so even in Bonnie's mind, there are people she treats a certain way and respects in a certain way, and there's people she has sex with without any emotional attachment. That's exactly how it is as a man. There's a woman you'll treat a certain way and have a certain amount of feeling for, and there's women you just fuck.
so
There's a woman you'll treat a certain way and have a certain amount of feeling for, and there's women you just fuck.
This is going to be quite interesting, a lot to learn, a lot to pick out, a lot of points that just show how, there is always some kind of double standard to life. Obviously, this is a really, really extreme topic. And maybe there are some hypocrisies, I don't know, but this is definitely interesting. With the first take, how, even in Bonnie's mind, she explained and he just, summarized that she is willing in her mind. It is so sick to me, but I would, go for anyone in general. I don't care. I would sleep with anyone within legal age, but then I do want to pick a certain kind of man for marriage, right? In her case, it is hitting the extreme of delusional, right? But not only is it hitting the extreme of delusional because of her way of life and the things that she's doing, but it's also showing that that is exactly the unfortunate, painful truth that when you tap into this world, or women who are in this world, that is the thing that they are going to be struggling with the most, because it's a funny, crazy mindset to think to yourself that you would allow someone else, right, to do the worst, to treat your body in a derogatory way, disgusting way. You, like, I don't even know how to put it, but then when you're done with that, mistreatment, shame, perhaps even certain risks that you could take along into the next relationship, then you want that other person to be the perfect cake, right? And that is one thing that you can definitely agree with Andrew Tate, because you see that over and over and over and over again. There's a certain circle of women, when they tap into that world, the delusion hits so hard that they now believe they can be playing the game that men are playing. And it doesn't work that way. Because let's put it another way, a woman cannot be messing around and then suddenly want to pick the good guy, because the good guy's going to think to himself, I don't want that. You've been messing around. The double standard to life is a man can be walking around, perhaps, doing the most, and then choose to pick the good girl, because the way we measure these things, obviously, remember, this is an extreme scenario, but in general, the way we measure these things are very different. Men and women have a very, very different point of view towards boundaries and expectations on sexualities or gathered experience, right? So that is one point you could give him. My argument or my stance still is valid to say I do not believe what Bonnie Blue is doing, the extremes that she's doing, is to be equated for the average women. That doesn't mean I'm denying the fact that, yes, there are girls out there who are doing a lot and still want the perfect outcome outside. Yes, that point I'm giving him true. But, to want to equate other women, average women, everyone being like her is not the same. But on the ground surface, when it comes to the mindset, there are similarities. Now, is he saying that Bunny Blue is acting like a man? That's another point, right? She's just gonna go for anything. I'm not saying that all men are like this, right? But we do understand that the likelihood of someone being more willing to, experience different partners is more of a fantasy towards men. I'm not saying women don't have that, but you guys know what I'm talking about. So it is interesting that even Bonnie Blue, I found it so funny how he said, even in her mind, hitting the delusional scale on the highest peak, even in her mind, she thinks, yeah, while I'm here sitting, ready to do it all, do the worst, I still have certain expectations. I still want certain values when it comes to marriage. And that is on her side also so hypocritical, because we want to dig out hypocrisy. That is so hypocritical, because this is the same woman. The picture really got me. Usually I'm not that kind of person, right? I don't, that how many known people lately, even some in the political realm have been allegedly exposed to be a man in their past life. So I don't usually follow this, but this was it entertaining? It was entertaining. Is it shocking? Yes, slightly. And are the similarities a norm? Yeah, come on, you need to give me that. So obviously, without a lot of elaboration, the reason why I see hypocrisy on her side is because this is the same woman who is literally going on the internet talking about taking other married men away, or sometimes even going so far to disrespect other women and say, oh, why don't you just send your husband my way? Why don't you just let your husband have a good time instead of, wasting around with you? You can send him my way. You should gift him. This is so that definitely shows me that there is a lot of hypocrisy going on, or maybe this person just does not understand what majority of people would understand under, the values of marriage. Maybe this person has a different idea, I'm sure about that, how marriage is supposed to look like or go, which, let's be very frank, that is something that every individual within their own private life are going to, decide. And there are always going to be nuances in how people actually live out their marriage life. But I would pretend to say, or claim to say, in general, most people wouldn't agree to the perspective of Bonnie. A married couple, when I think of a married couple, I do not see them taking their vows then to go start, sending themselves out, exposing the covenant of their marriage to other people, bringing risk in to their marriage life. And I'm talking about health risk for sure at this point, right? Not only the distraction and you're breaking your home, but you could literally put yourself at danger. Talking about hypocrisy slightly before I forget this aspect, obviously we know that there are always going to be double standards in life, okay? But the thing is, if you want to be very truthful and if you want to hold people accountable, holding women accountable, you need to hold men accountable as well. Are there men who are in the position to attract a lot of women? Yes. Are there some men who go about that responsibly? Yes. Are there a lot of men who find themselves in that position and actually are not responsible with this? Yes. Okay. So at the same point, when I'm listening to someone who is selling the idea of, a good way to go about life and women shouldn't be sluts and messing around and all that good stuff, you would also assume that that person is partaking in making sure that these things go the right way, meaning you're not entertaining promiscuous manners, promiscuous lifestyle just because you can as a man, just because you're not facing the risk of getting pregnant, but actually perhaps could be highly involved in creating, these dysfunctions. The same way some men would say, there are women you just play around with, you just sleep, you just F them, and others you take serious. We're going to go down to the point of awareness. That is a truth. It is painful, but that is a reality. And I think women need to be aware of, young women need to be aware of. If you choose to go a certain lane in life, men are going to put you in certain box, and that's the treatment you're going to get. And we should not pretend that women do not do the same thing. But, it's just different perspective. If people start accepting that we are different, things are going to make more sense much more faster. Um, but at the same time, I do not agree with, creating, supporting to create this, but then you as a man also then wanting the so-called good girl. Does that make sense? Hypocrisy, double standards, it is going to be always around. But I think the more you choose to tap into these kind of lifestyles, the more you're going to find yourself wrapped around in the whole confusion, right? So if there are men out there who are saying, well, I'm just going to be sleeping with a bunch of women and do what I want, and then later on expect a great wife, the likelihood of a man getting that in perspective to a woman doing the same and then getting that outcome, I'm going to be very honest, the man has a more likely chance to go about life that way and you know, get that outcome. Now, mind you, it's not all men that have that lifestyle, live that lifestyle, or even in a position to live that lifestyle. Is a certain, even when you listen to Andrew Tate, there's always this emphasis on it's a certain kind of women, group of women. It's a certain kind of men, group of men. Now, within even your average people or the ones you wouldn't expect it, of course, you're always going to find exceptions to the rules. Get that. But it's a certain kind of people, right? If you go into Bonnie Blue's lifestyle, that is exactly the kind of people you will find. If you want to take it more on the average level, I'm sorry to say, it's the ones who you always see around, moving around, always doing the most, always talking about how they're mixing up with different girls, always clubbing, always. It's a certain kind of lifestyle that gives you certain kind of outcome, right? So here kicks in the awareness. People need to be aware. Take it away from the extreme, what we introduced the topic, but people need to be aware, men and women, that we are not the same. There are double standards. There are certain things that men can go past with. Remember, I'm not trying to sell this as the norm. And there are certain things that women can go past with. There are double standards in life. There is a lot of hypocrisy wrapped around these double standards. And the best way for you not to find yourself into these things is don't be involved in this kind of lifestyle. Be aware. If you think you're not that kind of woman, okay, and you do want marriage and you do want a certain kind of outcome, a good outcome, okay, then be aware that playing in the pit is not going to help you. It's going to make it more difficult. It's going to just put you in a position where you perhaps are dealing with men who are going to be on the more playful round with you. So don't even go there. The same with men. If you are a man and you think you are actually looking for the good outcome, wife, whatever, and you start playing in the pit, you are just making it more difficult for you, because then you are going to find yourself messing with this one, messing with that one, messing with that one, creating a certain viewpoint that you put yourself into, creating a certain viewpoint about women, not realizing that, well, you found yourself dealing with a certain type of women. The same goes for women, vice versa, the other way around. If you playing in the pits and you start, dealing with a certain kind of man, you shouldn't be surprised about the outcome. So awareness is the key that's going to help people navigate, because especially with these kinds of dynamics, it is not always a straight answer, right? The best answer to not get involved or messed around with this is just stay away. Stay away from certain kind of choices, lifestyle, people, ideas, right? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for a woman to be distractive and to, you know, literally, how to put it, to benefit from destroying other people's marriages, other women's home, but at the same time sitting there and thinking, while I'm doing all of this create destruction, you know, danger, whatnot, bad choice, bad to myself, whatever, I still want, you know, these exact outcome that I've been destroying for these other women. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense.